good evening. As you recall, we were at Sancton Church and Patricia here joined us for the investigation here, and what an interesting result we had there. But at that time, our next investigation was announced, which was a paranormal investigation in a beautiful 17th century period cottage set in the rural idyll of Suffolk. And Suffolk, for those of you that live abroad, is very much a rural county, very agricultural, and where Pat lives, it's many miles from any industrialised or major cities, and it still preserves the character of ancient England in all that you see, and especially inside this beautiful cottage with its fantastic Inglenook fireplace, and of course its history of ghostly happenings. The cottage was built probably just after the Reformation. In fact, it sits on land which is just in front of the local church. And if we go back into history, the church before the pre-Reformation church owned a considerable amount of land, and each parish was probably owned in the majority by the local squire or the church. Anyway, enough from me. Pat, tell me a little bit more about the cottage and your association with the paranormal activity here.
Well, I moved up from Surrey to Suffolk, and I've always dreamed of living in a 17th century thatched cottage. This came up when we bought it, and I fell in love with it on the first viewing. And when we moved in, we had paranormal activity from the start.
And how did that manifest itself?
Well, the first thing we heard was a telephone ringing. We weren't connected on the internet. We didn't have any telephone. So we heard a telephone ringing in the front room. It was like those 1940s, you know, that little ring.
The old-fashioned ring?
Yeah, the old-fashioned
yeah.
ring. We heard that. That was on the very first day we moved in. And after that, we had other things happening, like pictures falling from walls. I heard whistles, and that was in the bathroom. And upstairs, I heard a growl in the bedroom.
What type of growl was that?
It was like a human growl. Like
an angry man?
Yeah, like an angry growl, and we didn't like that. My son heard it as well. My young
That's
son.
really weird.
Yeah, we both heard it. And we were in the house by ourselves.
Any temperature?
Yeah, we've had temperature changes from like cold to hot, and the lights going off. Actually, the switches going off, not just the lights. It was like the switches had been turned off manually when me and my son were in the house by ourselves. And I've heard in the kitchen like mumbling sounds, like people talking.
Well, yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, like it's like a radio one, but there's no radio one like.
Very much like Sancton as well.
Yeah, like that, and I've smelled like bread baking and like yeasty smell.
Didn't that happen when you first moved in, the bread baking?
Yeah, the bread baking, yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, I lived in a 17th century, I think it's 16th century cottage in Essex, in Sybil Headingham, which again is another rural area. And in that cottage, I had one or two weird things. One night we had a room full of guests, and we saw a shadow run into the fireplace of an animal. Oh. I had pictures shaking on the walls, and again weird noises that were heard. But the most poignant, I suppose, for me was when we actually moved into the property, because we could smell baking bread for at least 3 days. And we were attached to another timber frame property, so I assumed wrongly that it was my neighbour baking bread. So I commended them on their bread and wondered if I could try some. They laughed and said, well, we haven't baked any bread. And they said, you are aware that your home was the village bakery?
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, it was. It was a village bakery. And so what you're talking to me about bread, because bread. People here would have, obviously, they would not, in a village you would have a bakery.
Yeah.
If you lived in a rural district, out in the country, you baked your own. Yeah. So they were saying hello.
Oh, that's lovely.
Apart from that, I understand you've had light anomalies as well.
Yeah,
Can you
there's a lot of
them?
light and like white streaks of and mists by the fireplace going across to the door. Had them, and we've had the doors open, the latch in the middle of the night when we're all in bed.
Oh, that's creepy, isn't it?
Yeah, that is creepy, and the door opens. That is really, and you expect someone to come in. It's funny, but I don't feel scared. It's
No,
really
but
weird.
I think we're more frightened. It's not the ghosts we're frightened
Yeah.
of. It's the fact that that noise might be associated with a real person.
Yeah, I'd
That's
be more
what
frightened of
Yeah,
them.
that's what's
I'd
more
be more
frightening.
frightened of a burglar than
Yeah.
a ghost.
You're certainly not going to be frightened of a ghost at that level.
No, I wouldn't be frightened of a ghost. It's a burglar I'd be frightened of.
And understand also that when you moved in, which was what, last September?
Yeah, last September, yeah.
You had a little dig around in the garden?
Yes, and we found like a child's ring, 17th century child's ring, and some coins.
There's also a local rumour, isn't there, of a priest tunnel running under the house?
Yes, that's right, under the, I think it's over there by the telly.
By the television?
Yeah, the lady that I bought the house from, she said there was a tunnel leading to the church, St Mary the Virgin. And plus there's all witch marks, Puritan, I don't know, Puritan witch marks.
Yeah,
on the
that's
fireplace there.
the thing about witch marks and that. Everybody ascribes witchcraft, the treatment of women accused of witches as being Puritans, but in fact it was done by everybody, whether they were Catholic or Protestant, and it goes back much earlier. It goes all the way back into the dawn of time. It became more prominent perhaps during the medieval period, and of course by the 17th century it reached an absolute frenzy.
Yeah.
And everybody was convinced that their neighbour might be a witch, and so we had this nonsense with witchcraft. But you see, what the persuasive argument here was that if your cattle in a field died and some old lady who looked like a witch's crone was seen nearby, she would be the cause of it. It wouldn't be down to the fact that it could have been a disease that killed the cattle or other causes, because people's knowledge of medicines and the medical practices of that period was abysmal. They didn't know about bacteria, and so if any of these events occurred, it had to be the actions of a witch. And so some poor old lady would have to pay, mostly women I hasten to add, would have to pay the penalty for the loss of their cattle. And so they were ascribed as being witches, and they were punished. They were either tested, I believe, by water. They were dragged through water. If they drowned, they were clearly innocent. If they bobbed back to the surface, they were guilty, and they were hung or they were burnt at the stake. So these were pretty dangerous times to live in. And also, we talk about the health of the period. We go back to the 17th century. A lot of people didn't have warm, clean water.
No.
So people's hygiene was very, very low. So what you would end up with, particularly with the poor, so you can imagine some old lady that doesn't have the facilities to wash clean here as well as she should do, hasn't got soap, that kind of thing, and she's probably covered in all kinds of spots and sores, which typifies the modern idiom of what a witch looks like. If somebody looked ugly and they had all these cankers and sores and spots, that obviously meant they were corrupted by evil. So therefore, they were in league with the devil. And if some poor old dear old man had a pet cat or a dog and they talked to them, like we all do, I talk to my dog a lot,
Yeah, I talk to my cats.
and you talk to your cats, that also would be a sign that that dog or those cats were actually your familiars, given to you by Satan, and their job was to go around causing all kinds of mischief and mayhem. I mean, today when we look back at this period and we look at attitudes, it is appalling that people could ever conceive these ideas, but they did, unfortunately. And as a result of which, and particularly during the period of Matthew Hopkins and John Stearns, the Witchfinder General, they were serial killers and they murdered over 900 people.
Yeah, they got paid for it.
And they were paid handsomely for their crimes. That's the kind of world that people lived in during the 17th century. And so now we're brought up to date. We're inside this beautiful cottage, which you can see by the scenes that I've just shared with you. And it certainly has an atmosphere about it which I can feel. And you living here, you probably don't feel it as much because you get used to it.
Yeah.
I could certainly feel
People that come in feel it.
Yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And when I was sat in this very chair last time, I saw grey flashes over the fireplace. So tonight, what we're hoping to do, firstly, we're going to have a ghost cam session and see whether or not we can touch in with any spiritual light anomalies. And then we're going to follow that with a session on the ghost box. But before we go there, There's one interesting point I want to cover with you. I understand a squire of some description lived here.
Oh yeah.
Could you tell me more about him?
John Ernest de Grey. He was one of the Hennikers.
And who are the Hennikers?
The Hennikers owned all the land in this area.
Hmm.
They were quite wealthy.
And yet he lived in this cottage.
Yeah, well, he owned it. His name's on the deeds.
Hmm.
John Ernest de Grey. I don't know why.
He didn't live at the hall.
No, I don't know why he didn't live at the hall.
Yeah.
It was the 7th Baron and the 8th Baron that owned the house. They passed it down through the family.
And he was entitled to live there, but
Yes,
he chose
he
here.
was, yeah.
So that's very interesting. There's obviously a secret there somewhere that needs to be rediscovered. Hopefully tonight we may get some answers during our question and answer session with the ghost box, or perhaps he may even put an appearance in here. Do you think he's haunting the property?
I do, yeah. I think it's.
And what
him.
would you give basis for that?
There's other people on the deeds, like the Bishop of Worcester. He owned it as well.
Ah, because it was owned by the church.
Yeah, church again.
Yeah, the
And
church.
a retired teacher.
Hmm.
So there's a list of people.
So, but how can you associate de Grey? I think you mentioned earlier about light switches or something.
Yeah,
Something happened.
whenever we mentioned his name, the lights would go off.
The lights would go
Yeah.
off. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ground to cover. We're obviously going to have a late session. I'm actually sat here. We're just doing the interviews now, and it's 10:15. But we're hoping to go late tonight in
Yes.
order to be able to pick up that activity. So thank you for joining us, and stay with us as we explore this rather remote but idyllic cottage in the heart of the Suffolk countryside. Okay, we're now in IR mode. We've got the infrared on the camera working. We're actually in the main lounge next to the Inglenook. So what we're hoping to do is to pick up any of the light anomalies that have been picked up here previously. And just to reiterate, last time I was here and the lights were on, I saw grey flashes over the fireplace. So I'm hoping tonight, at least, we might capture one or two of those lights. So my fingers, as always, are crossed, and let's carry on with this investigation. The spirits of this house, this beautiful cottage. I've come here as a visitor, come here in love, light and peace. I mean you no harm or disrespect. I saw your presence in this room the last time I was here in the form of light flashes. To us, you appeared as a light flash. I just wondered whether or not you're prepared to show yourself to me tonight. And Pat is, as you can see, is with us. She's sat there by the chair. Pat has, as I say, lived here since September last year.
Yes, that's right.
And she's, if you like, become adapted to the environment. So whatever she sees or feels, if she sees anything or feels anything now, it's going to be quite significant. Because you tend to adapt to it, don't you?
Yes, you do. I do feel my hair getting touched a lot.
You feel your hair being touched?
Yes, on the top of my head. I get that a lot when I'm sitting here by myself.
Oh, really? How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling okay at the moment.
Oh, good. Okay, I'll call out to the spirits of this property. And I'll call out to Baron Henniker, who lived here for a period of time, about 50 years ago, I believe. I wondered perhaps whether you would make an appearance to us, or give us some indication. It is believed, Baron, that you show your presence by turning lights on or off. So what we've done, we've left the fireplace light on, the Inglenook fireplace. We wondered if you could make those lights go off, please. As acknowledgement of your presence. Or any other sign or signal that would indicate to us that you're here. Whether it be a noise, or whether you could touch one of us, or whether you could generate a light anomaly that we can see, which would indicate that you're here. You have nothing to fear from me. I mean you no harm. I mean you no disrespect. I have come here in love, light and peace to make friendly and peaceful contact with you. You know Pat, she's lived here. You know she's a good person. Hopefully you feel the same about me. Is there anybody here who would like to say something? If you could you do so now, please? Please, could you give us a sign? If you see those little flashing lights, it's just a reflection of light coming off the tinsel on the Christmas tree, as we're in December. Please, could you give us an indication? We mean you no disrespect. Please, Baron, could you give us a sign? I can understand if you don't want to talk to us. But Pat lives here. She's living in your home. I think that she would be honoured if you made some indication of a presence. Why don't you open up, Pat? Why don't you just speak yourself to him?
Baron, could you give us a sign, please? I know you're around. We've turned the lights out when we've mentioned your name, when we've stood on the stairway. It's on the stairways outside where I know we've got the mists and that now. On the stairways is when we've mentioned his name. The red staircase out there.
Yeah.
Should we go out there?
No, I'm going to stand here while you're
Okay.
talking. You sit down.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm only moved over here because the light.
Yeah, the light. Is
Yeah.
it okay, the light there?
No, it's fine here. Yeah.
Okay, Baron, if it is you that's here, could you just give us just any sign, a knock, a tap, or touch one of us if you can, just to show it's you. It's your presence that we feel all the time in this house. I just feel it's you that's here, even though a lot of people have lived here over the years. But I was drawn to your picture when I seen it. So, if you could just... I feel like it's got darker in here, do you?
I'm not really sure because I'm using the viewfinder.
The light seems to have dimmed a bit.
Mhm.
Can you give a little tap or a knock? If it is you, Baron. Or a light anonymy. Because you usually show lights in the pictures and people have seen the lights and the mists.
Please, Baron, I'm looking at Patricia now. She's a lovely person. You know she is a lovely person. She knows you're somebody that you can trust. So
You can trust me, Baron. We don't want to get rid of you. We like you being here. Looks like it's getting darker.
I think your eyes might be adjusting to it.
It's my eyes. It must be my eyes.
It does. Well, yeah, it does feel a bit.
Tricks, yeah,
It does
feels
feel a
like
bit
it's like
darker.
It's getting, yeah.
Are there any other spirits of this house? I know that there are, but who are prepared to come forward? I know that I'm treading across many different time streams in the history of this property. all the people that have lived and died here. And if this house has stood since the 17th century, well, it must be well over 50, maybe 100, maybe more people that have died here. I don't know. Certainly they lived here.
It's during the plague times too, wasn't it? 1625?
Yeah, it could have. 1666 was the Great Fire, which destroyed a lot of the plague-infected properties of London. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure on the exact date for the beginning of the plague, but it was brought over from Europe.
Yeah. I was wondering if there's any plague victims in the garden. If there is, could you let us know?
Just for the benefit of the camera, there are 2 other people in the property who are upstairs. I'm just scanning the camera around, Pat. I've not actually seen any light anomalies this time.
No. We usually are up in the bedroom.
Should we go to the bedroom?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just tell Michael to try and keep it
Please speak to us. Please say something. Please don't be shy. I'm here, just me now. If you wish to speak or say something or do something, please do so. But not maliciously, for I have no malice or ill intent towards you. Can you please give us some indication? I'll stand up briefly. I just saw that door open. And again. Let's go and check it out. It could be a draft, to be honest. This is the bathroom. And the staircase that leads upstairs.
Oh, we can go upstairs now.
No, the door opened.
What door?
This door. It went like this.
Did it?
Twice, but I think that was the fact that you were up there and it was creating a draft. I couldn't be sure.
There's no drafts upstairs though. Come on, let's go. That's weird. I'll just.
I've got it on camera anyway.
Oh, did you? Oh, good. Oh, careful.
Yeah, with old cottages, they had very narrow staircases.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
Okay,
Let's
we've
get you.
now moved to the master bedroom. It feels different to the lounge. It doesn't feel unpleasant, but then nowhere in this property feels unpleasant. It seems as though there is a mutual bonding between the spiritual forces that prevail here and those that live in occupation. I'm the outsider, I'm the intruder. There's someone in this room now.
There was a different atmosphere up here, though.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely, yeah. When you think about this house was built when America was almost an elusive land of mystery that existed thousands of miles across the sea. So you can imagine the people that lived here during this period after it was built. Some of those may have gone across as Puritans or as settlers. I find all this highly fascinating and intriguing. I'm feeling sickness now. I'm feeling like whoever lived in this room, somebody who lived here, was very, very ill and spent a long time in this room. Many, many years perhaps. And I'm feeling sadness.
You okay, Chris?
Yeah. It's just an emotional wave.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I feel about this room. Somebody who was much loved, much cared for. Somebody who was the rock of somebody's life. And this could have happened to anybody over the centuries. But in this particular instance, I just felt that grief, that loss. It just came over like a wave and then it just quickly dissipated. Somebody loved somebody who died in this room very deeply. And again, you see, we're in a period property, we're going over time streams running over centuries. We're looking at 400 years. During that period of time, the amount of people that lived here have to be taken into consideration. All of the events that took place over that period, the good things, the bad things, the matters that perhaps are best left forgotten. But it all happened, and not just this particular home, but in many, many homes, everywhere. Please give us an indication. I call to the spirit of this room, the one that's in this room most of the time. I call to you to give us an indication, please, of your presence. Could you make one of those dolls move on the chair that I'm looking at?
Can you show yourself?
No matter how ever so slight it might be, but if you could do that, that would be wonderful.
In the presence of an orb? You've done it before.
You got an orb?
Yeah, we've got orbs when we've asked for them
Oh,
on
okay.
command.
Could you show yourself, please, in light form? Are you feeling anything, Pat?
Not yet, no.
It's weird. When I'm just sat where I'm sat here. I'm almost in the shoes of somebody else. I know it sounds weird, but that's the feeling that I'm getting.
I'm not feeling anything because I'm concentrating on the camera.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the
that's
problem.
probably why.
Let me just get up and walk. Who's the person that made me feel so sad? Who's the person who made me, for a moment, I just completely lost myself. Who are you, please?
Can you make a sound? If you're in this room with us, can you make a sound?
the loss that I felt was for a daughter, a small child. And this is Victorian era. She was such a beautiful child. Rosy cheeks, fair of face. She was about 5. She was so loved.
I wonder if she likes the dolls that I've got. Because one of the dolls keeps falling on the floor.
It's almost like I'm looking for the mind of somebody else.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this reflection of that event. A child, about 5. She was so loved.
It's sad, isn't it?
And for her to be taken away. Do you ever feel sadness in this room?
No.
I'm feeling it now. I didn't feel it when I came in here the other day, and I certainly didn't feel it earlier. Are there any children still here? Could you say something, please? Or mummies or daddies? Or mama? Or papa? Please, can you do something to give us that impression that you're here? I can feel you, but other people, many other people want to see you. Not to cause you harm. They just want to say hello. Whoops, I just slipped. They just want to make contact with you. And all those pretty dolls that are sat on both of those chairs.
Would you like to play with them?
Could you move those dolls? Would you like to touch one of those dolls? Please do so.
There's some more over here as well.
Yeah, go. I would look more in that corner.
In that corner, okay. There's lots of dolls for you to play with. Another one up here.
To the camera, we've actually got 2 separate cameras which are filming this event here tonight, so hopefully they may pick up or may not pick up an anomaly of some description. I'm going to have the devil's own task of linking and coordinating all the audio together, but hopefully we'll get through it. The other camera here, the small camera on the table, is pointing to the ghost box. Lighting in here obviously is not that good. We've reduced the lighting in the kitchen to draw more atmosphere from the actual ghost box. So I'm about to open up now. Pat will join in and we'll ask questions and see whether or not we can elicit a response. But as you're all fully aware, whenever we do these sessions, we don't actually, all the time, I hasten to add, understand what they're saying, and it's only when we are reviewing the video later that we actually pick it up. I'll turn around here a bit so it'll be a little bit easier to work with. Okay, I'm a guest in this beautiful cottage here tonight. My name is Chris, and I've travelled from Essex, and I'm hoping to make contact with any friendly persons from this house in spirit, those that have lived here for a long time. It's changing. Is there anybody here who would like to give us an indication of their presence? Anybody wants to say hello? Could you say hello, please? Let's go through a few names here. Are there any religious people here associated, either the Bishop of Worcester or associates of the Bishop of Worcester, who once owned this property? Something there, but I don't know. Yeah, we're getting responses.
Yeah.
Could you tell me your name, please, sir?
Is that the Bishop of Worcester?
Is that any one of the priests associated with the Bishop of Worcester? Any rectors, deacons, vicars? He could have bought this cottage.
Yeah.
The Bishop of Worcester could have bought this cottage because it's next door to the church.
Yeah, that's true. Are there any teachers here? A retired teacher lived here.
Are there any persons in spirit willing to reach out to us here tonight? Could you tell me your name, please, if so?
Are any of the Hennikers here? Major Henniker, are you here? John Ernest de Grey, are you here?
You know, so you keep getting it.
Yeah, what is that?
I think you see I've explained this before on some investigations that we've had. What they do, they take random sound and they try to project that sound into words. And at first, when you first start to get a level of communication, you get this electronic screeches type sound, which gradually fades away. But that sounds like yes every time, doesn't it?
Right,
Yeah. So, are there any children here, please? Another response straight away. What you have to do, I know you're trying to communicate. What you have to do, you have to take this noise that this device is generating, and you have to use that sound to construct words which you can reply to us with. Can you do that, please? I know it's difficult. Can you try? Can somebody say yes to confirm?
Can you say yes?
Yes.
That was a
okay,
yes.
yeah, we got that.
Yes.
I mean, you folks have heard exactly what we've heard as we're talking to the ghost box.
It's definitely
Every
yes.
time we've asked a question for an affirmative, we've got what sounds to be an electronic yes. And as I've just mentioned, Spirit has to, because they've got no sound box, no vocal box, they have to take that sound that's been generated by this box to construct words or sentences. And it's not easy for them to do it. I'll ask you the question, are you a man? Can you say yes if you're a man? Can you give an affirmative if you're a woman? It's a woman.
Yeah, it's a woman.
Okay, thank you. I know this is difficult for you, so what I'm going to do, in order for us to be able to make this bridge, this transition from your side of the bridge to our side of the bridge, I need to ask a number of very carefully thought questions where you can give an affirmative response to if the answer is correct. Yes. Okay. Did you live in this house your entire life? Were you born here? Yes or no?
Did you die here?
Did you pass on from here? Are you? Is it the man? Yeah. Are you associated with Baron Henniker? Are you associated with the teacher that lived here? Or are we going back many more centuries? Who is the man called George? Are you George? Or are you David? In response
Yeah,
then.
there's something there.
For the benefit of the camera, yeah, for the benefit of the camera, there's a little boy who lives here. His name's Aidan, and he seems to be very, very tuned into spiritual activity.
Yeah.
I can't say much more about Aidan. He's a lovely little boy, but he came out with 2 names tonight.
Yeah.
He said that there was a horrible man here with silver hair with a tan,
Yeah.
wearing a yellow shirt,
Yeah.
whose name is George, and he doesn't like him.
Yeah.
And there's a younger person called David,
That's right.
who he
Yeah.
likes.
Yeah, he likes David. Yeah.
And David is the one he mentions in the garden,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
and George is the one he mentions in the house.
Yeah, because he keeps.
Was that you, George?
I think it was David. Every time we say David.
David? Is that you, David? Could you say yes if it's you, David?
Same something. He's trying to.
Yeah. Are you over the age of 10, David?
How old are you, David? Are you 12? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 12, because Aidan says he's 12.
That was
Says
very,
he's
very
12.
clear there. That was a
Yeah.
definite yes.
Yeah, yeah.
You speak because
Yeah.
you're the one who's got the level of contact.
Okay, David, do you like Aidan? Do you like Aidan, David? He says you're his friend. What was saying, David?
David,
He says
Patricia
you're nice.
just asked you, are you a friend of Aidan? Are you his friend? Same voice again as before. The problem is, David, if you're there, it's difficult for us to understand what you're saying until I can review this later because it's being recorded. So you may answer a question and I may not give the right response, and I do apologise, but this is the bridge of communication. You're reaching out to us from the other side. We're trying to make that level of contact with you. Are you over the age of 12, David? What was that? 9?
I don't know.
I heard 9.
Oh, God.
Are you being serious, David? Are you 9?
David is playing the phone with.
Are you 9? Are you an old man, David? Are you a kindly old man or are you a boy?
Are you a boy, David? I think he's a boy.
Got another
Said
straight
something,
answer there,
yeah.
yeah. I
Good
didn't
boy.
quite hear that, David. Is your name David, first of all?
Oops.
So for the benefit of the tape, the
The camera fell over.
the camera just literally fell over of its own accord. Let's try and stabilise that. I'll just chop this out, Pat, don't worry.
That's alright.
David, is that your correct name? Yeah, could you answer yes or no? Yes! Thank you, thank you. You have a sense of humour, yes?
Yes, yes.
Do you mind us asking you these questions? Do you have an issue with us asking you these questions? I thought that was a no there, I
Yeah.
heard.
I
Okay.
think he likes.
Thank you,
company.
David.
Do you like our company, David?
There was something there, but I couldn't
Yeah.
quite hear it. Are you happy for us to talk to you, David? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask you some straight
Yes.
questions? Did you live in this house in the 20th century? Yes or no? Did you live in this house in the 19th century? In the 18th century? In the 17th century? 17th century.
17th, yeah. Well, that's old.
Are you a yeoman farmer? Are you connected with the church next door? Are you, to use an expression, a man of God? You ask some questions, Pat, see if you get a...
Yes. Well, he was young, wasn't he? He's saying he's 12, so...
Yeah, we can just ask whatever you like and see if he will respond to you.
David, do you like us living here? Do you visit Aidan in his room?
Didn't you? I heard something.
There was something there, it said something. Is there anyone else here with you, David? Is there a little girl here? You thought there was a little girl in the bedroom, didn't you?
Yes, I did. When I was up in the upstairs bedroom, I felt the presence, or I felt something connected to a small child of about 5, a girl. Are you connected to her, or are you connected to anybody who died here in spirit?
Yes, I said yes.
Yes.
Connected, yeah.
What, to the little girl?
That sounds like a girl.
Is that to the little girl that I picked up?
Are you the little girl? Can you tell us your name? Little girl. What's your name?
Samantha.
Samantha. I heard that as well. Yes, she said yes.
Yeah. Samantha.
That sounded like Samantha, and she said yes.
Which is an old name.
Yeah. Samantha, that's not a very, very old name, though, is it?
It does. It goes back a few hundred years.
Oh, does it? Oh, I thought that would be from the 50s or 60s or something.
No, you're getting it confused with TV, like we all do, don't we? Bewitched is what you're thinking of.
Samantha, that's what you meant.
I don't think it's Samantha the Witch.
Samantha didn't
It's
know it was
not a
that
very
old.
common name historically, because in earlier periods, people tended to use biblical names, didn't
Yeah, Samantha, that's what she said, yes, that was it, Samantha.
they? Samantha, are you still here? Are you still listening? The little girl, Samantha, could you say something, please? That was an adult who answered Samantha. It was a woman's voice.
Oh, right.
Was Samantha your daughter? Was she your daughter?
Yes.
Yes.
Saying yes.
I felt a tremendous emotion briefly in there. Is that bedroom that we felt, the upstairs bedroom? Is that where you slept, where you lived? Was that Samantha's room?
wonder.
See, the other thing you have to consider with period cottages, that on their own they look quite large houses, but
Yeah.
in their day, I lived in a period cottage.
Yeah.
There were 4 families living in my cottage,
Yeah.
so this could have been divided up into smaller units.
Yeah.
Are there any people who subscribe to the Puritan faith here, please? Any free thinkers, any radicals? Any men of reason or women of reason?
That was
That's a heavy
mad.
voice.
Yeah, but that was a really deep.
Are you a Puritan, sir? Yes.
Yes. Oh, it's a Puritan. That was a deep voice. That was. I heard that.
Did you live in this house, sir? Was the church next door, did it subscribe to your beliefs, or was it against you? In other words, did they accept the Book of Common Prayer? See, the Puritans rejected a lot of the church's liturgy because in their mind, it created a rank or structure. There's no rank or structure in their order. And they would never accept the king as being their spokesman to God. Were you working here, sir? Did any persons living here work on the fields or on the farms? Yeah, I heard a voice saying, yeah, me. Was it hard work? I can imagine it must have been. I heard a male voice say yes.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. And when did you work here, sir? What was your period that you worked here? What was that?
I don't know. You have to listen to it later. There's someone saying something.
Yeah. Were there any people living here who later went to America? I can hear you talking. I can hear somebody talking. Who is George? We still haven't discovered who George is. Are you here, George? Do you exist, George?
George, are you in spirit?
It's gone cold in here.
You feel cold? As soon as you mentioned George.
Yeah, it went very cold.
Yeah.
Can you feel it?
Yeah. Are you here, George?
Yeah.
Oh, sounds like a silver-haired sort of dad.
Who was it? You, George, who growled in?
Yeah, it's like the growler.
Yeah. Were you the one who growled in the boys' bedroom?
Are you the growler, George?
Did you growl in Aidan's room? Who is the person who growled in Aidan's room? Okay, to the spirits of this building, we've reached the end of our session here today. Is there anything anybody would like to say before we go? Anyway, we've reached the end of the Ghost Box session here tonight. It's been very interesting. We've had some really good responses.
Yeah.
I'll just turn this speaker off.
It's really late.
It's really late. It's like 20 to 2. It'll be about 3:30 by the time I
by the time I actually return home. So it'll give you some idea of how long I've got to get back. And that's, of course, if there's no diversions tonight.
Well, hopefully there won't be.
Yeah.
I don't think there will be.
Last time I left Pat's house, every major road on the way back home was diverted, and I ended up driving an extra 25 miles. So I ended up in Bury St Edmunds, and I had to cut cross country. So basically, it took me, I think it took me about 3 hours to get back.
Oh, I hope it's not like that tonight.
No,
Get home
so-
really quick.
But anyway, thank you for joining us here tonight. It's been certainly an interesting session. We've had some very, very good responses, but as far as the PSB7 and Ghost Box is concerned, it's kind of gone dull and flat. But even so, having said that, a few names have popped up on the Ghost Box. There's been some interesting responses, and of course you will know way before I do, because you're watching this film, and I've yet to translate everything that's been recorded here tonight on this investigation. And just coming over to you, Pat, what impressions have you had about tonight?
Oh, it's been very good tonight. We've come out with some names on there. That little boy.
We've had some great responses,
we have
haven't we?
David and George, and he has mentioned their names all the time, you know. So.
No, it's been good. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm hopeful.
Try not to sneeze.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that we've really got something tangible that is going to be of great interest to you. And as I say, it's a pity Eddie couldn't join us tonight, but again, he had other commitments. But having said all that, I think we've had some really good responses.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
I didn't see any light anomalies. I have to say, I did not see any light anomalies. I did not. I wasn't touched or pushed or in any shape or form, but. I can say that tonight I had a very weird experience in the master bedroom.
Yes, you did.
I felt highly emotional, just for illogically, because emotionally I'm not highly emotional, but I was at that moment, and then it passed very quickly, and I picked up the impression of a small child, a 5-year-old, the tragic loss and betrayal of that child. And funny enough, we're sat here, and a woman answers with the child's name as Samantha.
Yeah, that's.
So that's really intriguing me. But anyway, thank you very much and good night. Thank
Good
you.
night.